In this tutorial, we are going to be looking at how to use other features in CATIA. So features like edge fillet, chamfer, draft angle, shell, thickness, and thread lap are features we are going to be looking at in this tutorial. So quickly we'll select a plane and we will commence. I select the XY plane, I select my sketch, and I pick a rectangle, preferably corner rectangle, and I draw my rectangle. I dimension. It's very important to dimension your sketches after drawing. Dimension my sketch. I give this a length of 300. I give this a width of 100, and we're good to go. So I exit my sketch and immediately I'm brought back to the feature window where I can then apply features. The first thing I do is I pad my sketch and I give this a length of 50 millimeters, and my sketch is padded. So what we do next is we use the features. So the first feature we are going to be using is the edge fillet. So to use the edge fillet, you select the edge fillet. Of course, there are other options here. There is the face fillet, there is the 3 tangent fillet, but the most common is the edge fillet, and that's what you're going to be using a lot of the time when you're modeling. Select the edge fillet, and immediately the fillet window pops up, and we determine the radius we are going to use. For this work, we are going to be using 5 millimeters as the radius, and we select this edge. And when we select the edge, we can preview it if we want to, and we have our edge filleted. But I think a 5 millimeter is too small. We're going to be doing with something much larger. Let's use probably a 10 millimeter fillet, so we can better appreciate. So this is how you use the edge fillet. So we are allowed to fillet any edge we want to fillet. And the next thing we do is the chamfer tool. We select the chamfer tool. The chamfer works like the fillet, but it uses a straight line and an angle instead of a radius. The fillet uses a radius, but the chamfer tool uses a straight line, a length, and an angle. So here we have the mode length, angle. We have different kind of modes. We have length, angle mode. We have length mode. We have the chord length mode. We have the height angle mode. We have the hood curve and angle mode. We have the hood curve and length mode. The most common people use is the length angle mode. So we are going to be using a length of, here it's 1 mm and 45 degrees. I'm going to be using a length of 5 millimeters and an angle of 30 degrees for this. So we select the length and angle, we select the edge where we want to chamfer, and we preview, and we have this. But since the 5 millimeters seems rather too small, I will use the 10 millimeter, and 10 millimeter seems quite big and big enough, and we select good. Now this is the chamfer tool. Of course, you're allowed to use any kind of mode you want to use for your designs, as the case may be. You're allowed to do whatever you want to, the style. Okay, quickly I will change this to the chamfer, this chamfer definition. I will use I will use the length mode. So in the length mode, you select the 2 lengths that you're going to be using for the chamfer. We will select a length of 10 millimeter here and 10 millimeter there, and we have the length 10 10, right? Height of 10 and 10. So this is the chamfer tool. You're allowed to use whatever style you want to use for the chamfer and the fillet. Now I will delete the chamfer, and the fillet, and I will take us to the next feature we are going to be using. The next feature we are going to be using is the draft angle feature. Now there are other options. There is the normal draft angle, there is the draft reflect line, and there is the variable angle draft. For this tutorial we are just using the draft angle, which is the most common in use. When you're modeling, you're not going to be using a lot of the draft reflect line unless there are certain features you want to build, but the most common is the draft angle. And then we select the draft angle, and immediately we have the pop-up coming. Before I use the draft angle, I will update my sketch, my pad. I want it to be bigger and probably shorter for this, so I will select a 150 mm, and I will select the sketch. I will alter the sketch slightly to fit my. I showed us how to do the sketch in previous tutorials. I explained how to go to the sketch and alter the size of the sketch to fit what you want to do. So I will use a 150 here, and I exit the sketch. Okay. So what we have here is the sketch updated to this. So in the previous tutorials, I showed us how to change the size of the sketch, the base sketch, and come back to the feature without having an issue. So right now we select the draft angle, and we make the selections, the faces to draft. I will select this face and this face. So we have two faces selected. The next thing we do is to select the angle of draft. So there is 10, there is 5 degrees. You can update the degrees here, or you can type it in. I'm using 10 degrees for this, 10 degrees for this, and I will select the neutral element. The neutral element is a surface where the faces draft around about. So the neutral element I will select is this top face as my neutral element. Okay, I messed up something. I should have put that in my selection. So I will simply close this and then restart the process. I select this face and this face. I give this an angle of 10 degrees, and then in the neutral selection I select this face, and the moment I select this face, there is the draft. So I can preview my draft, and I see the drafting happen. Preview button, you can now see drafting. Of course, in the more option you can make some other tweaks to your draft, but for the moment we are not doing all of that. You can just practice that. So we have our draft done. I can update my angle to 30 degrees if I want, and I have my draft here given to me. I have my faces drafted. So these faces are drafted at 30 degrees about this top face. So that's how you use the draft element. I will delete the draft, and I will go back to the face. The next thing I will do is I will use the shell tool. The shell tool is the shell feature is a tool that is used to give a certain thickness, remove thickness about a face or around the face, of course. So without taking much time, we will hit the shell, and the shell definition comes up. The first thing we do is select the thickness of the shell. the thickness of the shell for this, we will use 5 millimeters, and default outside thickness 0 millimeters. And then I select the faces to remove. I will select this face, and of course there is the more, you can do some smoothing, you can make some derivations and tweaks, but we are not doing that for now. Other thickness faces, we are not also doing that for now. We will then select OK, and once we do that, we see our model removed, we see the thickness removed, and we have all of that. Now that is how to use the shell tool to make space in a model. All right, so the next thing we will do is we will use the thickness tool. The thickness tool is used to give thickness to a face, a selected face. I will be giving thickness to this face inside, and I want to give it a certain thickness of, let me see, for this one, give it a thickness of 20 millimeters, and boom, and here I have a thickness of 20 millimeters, and it doesn't look like we did anything, so I will simply I will update the parameters so we can see what happens. If I give this a thickness of 80 millimeters, we see that I keep increasing that. I can give this a thickness of 120 millimeters, and we see by updating the thickness, by giving it thickness, I'm filling up the size. We can use these definition parameters, right click on the thickness to change the parameters. We can right click on the feature, select dot object, and we hit definition, or we can just double click on the object to get the definition set. So if I update this to 150, we see that the box is now totally covered with space inside. So we see we've given this the amount of thickness that we want to give it. So that is how you use the thickness tool for whatever you want to use it for. All right, so this is how to use the thickness, the drafts, the fillets, the shell, and the chamfer tool. In the next tutorial, we are going to be covering how to use the rib and the slot rib. See you in the next tutorial.